Hey. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I think I might be having some more technical difficulties, so please bear with me this evening. Welcome, everyone. I'm Coach Sheree, the single parent life coach, and I'm so glad you're here this evening. Today, we're leaning into a practice that's deeply transformative, yet it's often overlooked when it comes to boundaries. Um, we're going to talk about self-check moments, weekly practices to reflect on your boundaries. I've been talking about boundaries for a minute now, and I really want to, I guess, help you to embrace boundaries and help you understand that it matters. Boundaries do matter. They help you stick to your standards, not just, in romantic relationships, but in every relationship that you have, that you encounter with your children, with family, with friends, even with yourself. So you want to make sure that um, you hone in on tonight's live, that you listen and everything. And, these are just self-check moments, are intentional moments that we have to create, each week or daily, to check in with ourselves and evaluate our boundaries, our emotional boundaries, your time-based boundaries, your energy levels, your communication lines. We set those to protect our peace, prioritize our wellness, our well-being, and lead from a place of love and compassion and consideration, not depletion. And so, again, tonight's live is talking about self-check moments. Weekly practices to reflect on your boundaries. So, you have to think of these self-check moments as if they are like a personal tune-up. Just like we maintain our homes, our cars, we also need to maintain our internal landscape. Our hearts, our minds, our emotional well-being. And so when we make that time to reflect on where we are, sometimes the situation can occur and we may not address it immediately, whatever that may be. When you start doing these weekly checks, self-check moments, we become more in tune with our needs, more confident in our decisions and more rooted in who we are or who we were. So, and who we're not wanting to continue to be, if that makes sense. So grab your journal, your favorite drink. I think I have some water that's near me. And let's kind of take a minute to slow down and think and have those self-check moments, including me. So this is your space to reflect, reset, and realign. So the four areas that I'm going to focus on tonight are um, emotional boundaries, your time boundaries, your energy boundaries, and your communication boundaries. So first off, it's going to be the emotional boundaries. Um, and each one of these areas represent a different type of boundary. Breaking it down helps you to understand how you can have practical steps, practical ways to reflect and reset. And so emotional boundaries, a definition for emotional boundaries is these boundaries protect your emotional well-being by helping you separate your feelings from those of others. Because a lot of times the reason why we are emotional is because we're hearing somebody else's feelings, or we're trying to consider their feelings and we don't even consider our own. And so then we become emotional in that situation, and then our circumstance, and then we're stuck with, did I handle that well? Or did I react or respond the wrong way? Why does this matter? I'm glad you asked. Without having a strong emotional boundary, you might carry guilt and you might carry responsibility that's not even yours. You may carry a level of accountability that should be that other person or other people that you have had a conversational issue where you may have reacted the wrong way, and sometimes you become the villain versus the victim when you are indeed the victim, or unnecessary stress that really doesn't belong to you. And so in those moments you can say, hey, what emotions have I been holding on to that aren't mine? What emotions have I been holding on to that aren't mine? And again, if you're watching live right now, I may have some technical difficulties, so if I'm going in and out, be patient. It should come right back in. So a reset strategy that I use is I practice a 5 minute evening or morning to breathe, to inhale and exhale. And it's something that I actually need to continue doing, because sometimes we forget that even once we've overcome one situation, sometimes we tend to think, okay, well, I can handle this situation the same way. No, not necessarily. A lot of times we have to, again, depending on which boundary that situation may cross, then that may warrant what strategy you may use. And so a reset strategy for emotional boundaries would be to practice like a 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, depending on what level you have allowed yourself to get to in your emotions. To begin breathing, taking deep breaths, and inhaling, calm, and exhaling, releasing those things from you that have crossed your emotional boundary, have caused you to act out in a way that you were controlled by your emotions versus uh, being emotionally, how can I say it? Trying to look at the word. Um, your emotions being controlled. And so acknowledge what those emotions are, and let go of what that of anything that isn't yours to carry, because you're not responsible for someone else's actions. You're not responsible for someone else's accountability. And so again, that question you should ask yourself, to do a self check prompt: what emotions have I been holding on to that aren't mine? And so by taking those deep breaths, you inhale, you should at some point in your breathing exercise, inhale calmness and exhale release, meaning release those emotions that don't belong to you and those emotions that do belong to you. Evaluate why you chose to um, go that route in your emotions. Why did I respond that way? And so the next thing we'll talk about is our time boundaries. And the definition for time boundaries are, these help you manage your time in alignment with your priorities. And so being structured, and sometimes my kids may say OCD, is really big on time boundaries are big when you need to make sure you stick to a schedule. Sometimes you can allow for some flexibility too. It matters because, overcommitting, or it can turn into people pleasing, or people pleasing can lead to burnout, especially as a single parent, because you're already giving yourself in time to children, to a job, to household things that you have to do, like whether that's cleaning or paying bills, the upkeep of a home. And then even where do you fit in that? Sometimes you're tired after taking care of everyone else. And so the self-check prompt would be, where do I overextend myself? Or where did I overextend myself this week? And when you ask yourself that question, where did I overextend myself this week? You want to say, did I overextend myself at work? Did I overextend myself with my children? Even in with my friends, did I overextend a listening ear? Did I overextend, not allowing myself to say, hey, you know what? I really don't have the capacity to hear that today. And sometimes that's just what it is, and it's okay to say that, because one thing you don't want to do is become burnout from overcommitting or people pleasing, or, pouring from an empty cup. If it's empty, what are you pouring into that person? Just think about that for a second. And so a reset strategy would be to block off 1 hour of your day, or if you can block off 1 hour during the week, that's just for you. Mark it as unavailable on your calendar. Put your phone on do not disturb. Log out of social media. Turn the TV off. Protect it like it's a doctor's appointment. With no guilt, no explaining. You just need that time to yourself. I actually just did that, and I'm going to do it again by taking a day off from my regular job and just really focus in on me. It's important. Sometimes it takes a minute. I took a moment yesterday and went out to my vehicle and just sat there for a minute. Day before yesterday, and the reason why I had to do that was because I needed to take that time to say, okay, you know what? Let me just breathe. Because some days can be overwhelming. Sometimes there are no words to describe how you feel. Sometimes there are no words to, understand why am I dealing with this. Sometimes there's just feelings only. And when there's just feelings and they're indescribable, you cannot. Sometimes your first response may not be to pray. Your first response may be to be angry. And that's okay. Like I stated, treat that 1 hour time this week or next week, or if even if you can start putting it in your day to be just for you, you know, make yourself unavailable. If you go to a doctor's appointment and you know there's something wrong, you want to make sure that you get that checked out and they actually take the time to thoroughly check you out. And when they don't, something is missed. So when you look at it from that standpoint and you think about yourself, let's just stop putting ourselves on the back burner, because we're going to go to that job. We're going to answer that call from that friend or that significant other. So, what are you doing for you without guilt, without explaining? So, the next one kind of ties into also the time boundaries is energy boundaries. Because what are you giving your energy to that really don't deserve it? So, energy boundaries, a definition for that would be, it helps you protect your physical, mental, and spiritual energy. This matters because, like I stated beforehand, you can't pour from an empty cup. Knowing what drains or energizes you is the key to thriving, not just surviving. Because if you're surviving off air, that's nothing. That's just air. It's nothing that's going to sustain you. And so one question you want to ask yourself, who or what left me feeling drained this week? Who or what left me feeling drained this week? And so when you think about that, you're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I don't need to entertain that anymore, or allow my energy to give that person access to me, to interrupt my energy or my peace, or even in knowing who or what left you drained. Or I don't need to do that anymore, because that left me drained, that left me overwhelmed, that left me feeling, and it's in the season that you're needing to let go of certain things when it comes to your energy and your time boundaries, because a lot of times we do things unnecessarily. We give, even though it may be something that we want to do, are we really doing it for ourselves wholeheartedly? Or are we doing it for someone else? And so try doing like an audit of your energy. And that may seem weird, but I'm always talking about writing things down and journaling things because it helps. And so, because it's something that I have to do as well. And, try making 2 columns on that one page, one side being life-giving and the other one being energy draining. And use this as an awareness guide to your boundaries, for the upcoming week ahead, to make sure that you don't, whatever those energy draining people or things or places are, figure that out. Even if it's a job, figure out, okay, what type of job do I want? How much money do I need to make? And what do I not need to deal with? Whether that's you're working at a call center, you don't want to answer inbound calls, or whether you're working on a job and you don't want to be in an office or a cubicle with everyone else. Figure out what that is for you. Because when you do that audit, you figure out, okay, then you figure out your next plan so that you can, and it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes once we get those realizations, it takes a minute to digest that realization, because it's like, dang, especially when you realize it and you've been doing it for years. And so that also ties into the next one, and the very last focus area would be communication boundaries. Definition for communication boundaries are: these define how you express your needs, your limits, and your expectations to others. Why does this matter? I'm glad you asked. Clear communication prevents resentment and supports mutual respect in relationships. It should. And sometimes I find myself, when I have stated what my boundaries are, that sometimes people walk away, and that's okay. Or people don't want to deal with you anymore because you're no longer that person that you used to be. Maybe that person they could walk all over, but I'm not handing people a mat to walk all over me. Don't dust your feet off on me. especially if I couldn't do the same with the things that I'm dealing with or the things that I'm facing, or if I can't do it to you, you definitely can't do it to me. So what makes you more valuable than me? Doesn't work that way. When you talk about dealing with family, friends, significant others, people on your job, you need to have clear communication so that people do not cross your boundaries. Because you have to know what your own limits are so you don't even cross your own boundaries that you set for yourself. And it's easily done because some things are habitual. Sometimes it's how you were raised. Sometimes it's the way you think. Sometimes, like I said, it's your mindset, and our mindset shift is needed. Sometimes we're still stuck in people pleasing. Well, I just don't want to say nothing because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to say anything for conflict. Been there, done that. If I'm the villain this time around, oh well, because being the victim is not what I want to do. It's not my forte. It's not what I want to do. And it's not intentionally hurting someone, but when you have to look at the situation and address it for what it is and understand, okay, you know what? How many times have I allowed this to happen? How many times have I not spoken up for myself? How many times have I not said that, okay, this is hurting me? Or, no, you don't get to do that to me. You don't get to holler at me. You don't get to scream at me. You don't get to say this to me in that way. You don't get to curse at me, especially if it's not allowed for you to give back that same energy. So clear communication, it does prevent you from resentment, and it supports a mutual respect in relationships. That's what your goal is in communicating your boundaries, a mutual respect. That's it. Even if you don't like it, you got to respect it, because you're going to have boundaries that people don't like, and they're not going to like it, but they will respect it if they love and care for you, if they value you. And so one of the self-check prompts that you can have, and a question you can ask for yourself is, have I clearly communicated my needs, or have I expected others to just get it? And sometimes you can do a bit of both, because sometimes our communication don't come off the way we're thinking it, depending on what level of emotions are in that situation, or in that circumstance, or that conversation between you and that person. Emotions can be high, and then can be yelling and screaming, whatever that may be. And sometimes situations have to occur in order for you to say, hey, this hurt me. I don't want to deal with that anymore. I don't want to deal with you in that way anymore. And it may hurt, but at least you know where you and that person stands. The worst part about it is something happening and you're cut off from even expressing how you feel. You're cut off from even explaining why you made a decision for you. Because maybe people didn't know that you were creating boundaries for yourself. Maybe people weren't aware that you needed to consider having energy boundaries and time boundaries and communication boundaries. And they just didn't know. They had an expectation of you to continue being the person that you were, that they may have been comfortable with, but you were yet uncomfortable with who you were. And so the fact that you've changed that, now situations are cured, and you can't express why you chose to go that route, because again, they are treating you like how you used to be. And because you've allowed it for so long, then when you begin to switch and be someone else and be someone different, and you speak up for yourself, then you become the villain. This is something that I've experienced myself, and it's okay. And sometimes it can be a lonely place. But however, sometimes that is the very place that God wants you to be in. Sometimes it is the very place that you need to be in. Sometimes it is the very place that you have to be in order to grow mentally, physically, spiritually, just growing into who you were always destined to be. Because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always receive what you've always gotten. It's really just that simple. The hard part is putting these things into place and into practice, and understanding that when I put these boundaries into place, I just may lose this person, whomever that may be. I've had people say, well, you think too much of yourself, or you bougie, or you this, you that. Okay. And then sometimes people don't communicate their boundaries, by having a conversation. They communicate it through their actions. Sorry, I almost couldn't get that word out. But they communicate it through their actions. Pay attention. They'll tell you. what they think of you, how they feel. And it's okay because then when you respond like that, then it's like, oh, well, I don't know what happened. Well, you don't, huh? Let's have a conversation. We can talk about it. So, like I stated beforehand, if they value you, they love you, if they honor you, they respect you, they're loyal to you, they can definitely come to you and have a conversation, reach out to you. If they're not reaching out, they don't value you because it's going to be something in them that's going to hold them accountable. And when they aren't, because when a person has to be held accountable, then they have to face themselves. They have to face that part of them that's wrong. And everybody's not ready to walk in that. Everybody's not ready to face that. And that's not your fault. It is not your responsibility to carry on that. That was kind of what we were talking about earlier. That emotional boundary. That's not you're not responsible for that. That's on them. And so the way to reset that, the reset strategy for that boundary of your communication boundary is to choose one intentional conversation this week where you express a need or clarity or express a need clearly and calmly. Try opening it with, um, I want to be honest about something I need to say to you. I want to be honest about something that I didn't say to you, or why something that the reason why I responded a certain way. And again, if you reach out and you don't get a response, you've taken the first necessary step. That's not on you. It's off of you now. The hard part is the residual of that. Like, you know what you need to do, you do it, but then you can't get it accomplished because that person's closed off, or that person has blocked you, or don't want to deal with you anymore, or is avoiding you. So they're not only avoiding um, you, but they're avoiding themselves from growing. They're stunning their own growth for allowing themselves to not have that much needed conversation, not just for you, but it's needed for them in order for them to grow and be understood and understand you. And so, in closing tonight, your boundaries are not walls; they are bridges to a deeper self-respect, to have better relationships, healthier relationships, and a more grounded version of yourself. Everybody want to be grounded in things that matter, and your boundaries do matter. That's going to make you the person that you're desiring to be. Every 6 months we should be growing. Every time you pause to check, check in, or you're choosing to lead with clarity instead of chaos. And um, so here's a couple gentle reminders for you guys. So pick one of the four boundary areas, choose one prompt to reflect on, and try one reset habit this week. Start small, stay consistent, come back and rewatch this if you need to hear it again, because transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens one self check at a time. And if the information from this session tonight poured into you, pay it forward. Tag another single parent, who deserves to prioritize their peace. Single father, single mother, you know, um, until next time, keep honoring your needs, keep loving yourself deeper, and keep walking boldly in your purpose. Because you have to be able to be that example for your children. They're going to face trials and tribulations, and if you don't create those boundaries, you won't teach them how to create them. You won't even teach them the boundaries are important, the ones that you have with each other. Like, they will have boundaries with you, you will have boundaries with them. I mean, I've done that with my oldest, that's 24, my son, that's 17, and I'm having to do it all over again because he's graduated from high school. And then I'm right in that area where I'm starting it again with my 15-year-old. Change happens. They're no longer babies. They have, they're becoming, one is already a woman, the other is becoming a woman, and, a young lady, and my son is a young man going into adulthood. And so we were doing things for his college time, and I stated to him, I said, hey, mama's on the advisory board now. I mean, everything's going to be sent to you. Only thing I'm going to do is just say, hey, okay, what do we do? I'm going to ask you now. And so it's just one of those things that, like I stated, if you don't create these boundaries, then you don't set up healthy boundaries for generations to come. So until next time, I hope I've poured something into you that you can meditate on and help you transform. Just know it's only one self check at a time. Have a great Thursday, a great thriving solo Thursday, and we'll see you next week.